Hello and welcome to the Central Television. I am Lekan Onabanjo. The top stories at this hour. Nigeria's president says kidnappers must be treated as terrorists. China congratulates Senegal's Faye on election win. Son of Guinea-Bissau ex-president jailed in US for drug trafficking. Details to come your way shortly. We begin the news in West Africa, where President Bola Tinubu has declared that individuals involved in crimes such as kidnapping must be treated as terrorists. The president made the declaration on Tuesday at a Ramadan dinner with members of the federal judiciary led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola. Reiterating the government's resolve to defeating banditry, the president said those who resort to kidnapping children are cowards, incapable of confronting the might of the Nigerian armed forces. Nigeria is facing increasing security challenges, majorly terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and oil theft. The northwest and northeast geopolitical zones have recorded the highest number of insurgents and bandit attacks in the last decade, with terror gangs sprawled across forests in the zones, killing and kidnapping thousands of residents. And now to discuss this, I'm joined by a security expert, Onabanjo Michael. Onabanjo Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Okay, so President Tinubu has said that kidnappers must be treated as terrorists, but we've seen these criminals rechristened as repentant Boko Haram or repentant terrorists in some cases. So what do you make of this statement by the president?
First of all, I will have to congratulate the children that were released last week. It's a big relief for the country, it's a big relief for the family, and it's a relief to we at the security apparatus. So for the president to have come up and ask every one of us now to start looking at how we can treat kidnappers as a terrorist, I'm sure the president is coming at the right timing. There's no better time like this, and it's not left for us to be able to understand what terrorism is and what kidnapping is. And you know, as a country that we have not been proactive in security matter. But a time like this, for the president to have come up with this, all we need to do is to put in parameter in place, to put in mechanism and laws that can be able to guide the judiciary to ensure that kidnappers can be treated as terrorists, because there's no difference between the kidnappers and the terrorists in the Nigeria context.
Okay.
Because all what they've been adoption of people and also intimidation of lives and properties.
Okay, yes, you are a security expert. Some people have said that ending terrorism and all its shade in the country is now a little too late, as there are some influential figures who benefit from it. Some are terrorist apologetics, and there have been insinuations of infiltration among the rank and file of Nigeria's security architecture. So what do you make, or what do you think of these particular postulations? Because if we talk about dealing with the issues around terrorism and nipping it, and we have these impediments, it probably might be hard. So I guess we just lost communication with Onabanjo Michael, something we need to work on definitely to see how we can bring him back online to continue with the discussion. But then in the meantime, we'll look at our next story, which has to do with elder statesman Edwin Clark, who was warned against a repeated invasion of his property in Delta State by personnel of the Nigerian military and the Nigerian police, saying these are acts of provocation. Clark, while speaking to newsmen in Abuja, though while admitting that the military has tendered an apology, says that those responsible should be warned to desist from such actions in the future and exercise decorum and the rule of law in carrying out their responsibilities. He says due notification should be given before any unprovoked barge into his property, as he's willing to cooperate with security agencies irrespective of whatever information they intend to investigate.
The army has apologized to me. He's the general in charge of South and some other places. I was satisfied, and I'm still satisfied. But I brought it to the notice that I do not want this to happen again, whereby the mistakes are coming up and down. Police came into my house. They said they missed their way, or I don't know what happened. The baggy people said they were putting ammunition. Delta boys from the Niger Delta were bringing ammunition to my house through they saw one truck, hillocks filled with guns and so on, and they were passing through a taxi. All those were bunkum. What am I saying? Give me peace of mind. I'll still contribute to the welfare of Nigeria. That's all what I want. My message is that why this coincidence? Why was some inquiry not made having regard to a man like me? If you found a devilish fellow, a murderer in my house, it's a bad thing. So why do you want to implicate me before you tell my governor? By taking me by surprise. That's my anger, that's my worries. But I'm forgiving all that because what is important now, let us nip this thing on the bud. Otherwise it will escalate. I've told you how they attacked my house. It will be another person, there will be problems.
News Central's correspondent Austin Azu went round the premises of the elder statesman after the military invasion. And now to discuss this, I am joined by a former president, Ijaw Youth Council, Udengs Eraduri. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
Good afternoon to you too. Now, the Nigerian military had promised that there will be no reprisal attacks after 17 military personnel were gruesomely killed at Okoma community. Now, based on the latest revelation by the elder statesman, Edwin Clark, to you, is it more of an investigation into this matter or an act of revenge?
Well, the military and security agencies have a right to carry out their responsibilities with respect to investigating the issues that have led us this far. First of all, commensurate with the soldiers and, of course, the community, innocent community members who were caught in the crossfire of this event. And I think that that's in that same vein is where we are discussing about an invasion of an elder statesman's property. But because the elder statesman himself, Chief Edwin Clark, have accepted the apologies from the military and have chosen to forgive them, I may not delve so much into it because I won't be crying more than the bereaved. However, the military need to be more professional about their engagement, their rules of engagement. Going to an elder statesman in a polarized Nigeria as we find ourselves, going into one of our best, one of our greatest leaders in the Niger Delta and, compromising his security in his community home like that, it's something that calls for worry because you never hear that military go and compromise houses of leaders in other parts of the country, especially where Boko Haram is reigning supreme. But to come to premises of one of the revered leaders, a man who has served Nigeria at various levels, a commissioner in those days, a minister, come on. I think that it is something that calls for worry. But like I said, the elder statesman has accepted the apology. The military must be professional in their investigating this matter because the vigor and the tenacity with which they are going about it, if the same portion is done in the north, we would have been able to deal with the challenges of Boko Haram and the rest. Rather,
okay, so that's actually where I'm going now, because we heard that the military troops were attacked and killed recently with their trucks burnt in Zamfara State. A military base in Yobe State was also attacked about 3 days ago. Before now, a similar attack happened in a northern state this year, where a military vehicle was burnt. Now, the question would always arise, why didn't we see same, as you mentioned, or you rightly stated, vigor or aggressiveness in terms of response when it comes to military dealing with the issues of attack on their personnel, as we saw in Delta States?
Well, there are the double standards that you find in Nigeria. Once you do not have a leader in government from your area, the approach and the response you get from civil servants, military, and everything will be going against you. But once they hear that the president is from this angle, or there's a minister, there's a leader in government from this part of the country, the approach is usually different. But you see, these things we have been managing is the reason why Nigeria is almost breaking on our head, where we think that we are hiding our approach towards things. We want to be more sentimental when it is in our side, and when it is in the other person's side, you release all your arsenals. This is why we are where we are. Niger Delta people, we don't condone criminality. You can see that anywhere the boys get to, the people are calling the security agencies to say we don't see one person here, we don't see one person here. We are not a people that accommodate this kind of criminality. So I know that those who have perpetrated this dastardly act will be brought to book in no distant time. I am only using the opportunity to also call on the northern leaders, the communities in the north, to copy the way the Niger Delta people reject crime in such manner. You can see that everywhere in the Niger Delta, people are pointing fingers. See that there, see where they enter, and the military is on their trail. And hopefully, we will nip this in the bud that it doesn't repeat itself again. But you see, the body lies on the entire security architecture of the country. Their modus operandi, when it comes to their dispensing authority in different parts of the country, is the reason why people sometimes get to the extreme. People say, if this is how you are going to be treating us. The way they carry out their activities, the bunkering going on in the Niger Delta, the people are seeing the role that the security is playing.
So does it mean, are you insinuating, because we've heard reports, are you insinuating or corroborating some speculations that some certain key figures in Delta State use the instrumentation of military personnel to perpetrate crude thefts, illegal bunkering in Delta State, and what happened in Okoma community was a spillover of these activities that have continued for a while? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there are so many dimensions. I'm not talking about Delta State alone. I'm talking about Nigeria.
Let's concentrate on Delta State for now. Yeah. Let's concentrate on what happened in Okoma community. Let's concentrate on that.
But the investigation, we're also putting our ears on the ground. We are getting a lot of feelers that it's not just about community conflict. There are a lot of issues surrounding this matter. There are political dimensions to it. There are bunkering and pipeline vandalization aspect to it before the community conflict. So they are all interwound, and in the appropriate time, we will come up with our position. But anybody who operates in that environment knows where the truth about what happened in Kwama lies.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, what do you think the best approach should be when it comes to this investigation that has been conducted by the military, how to get to the root of the matter, and how to quell any sort of vices or criminal elements or situations within and around that particular community, by extension, Delta State?
Are you sure we can be able to profile one solution, a cosmetic solution to this problem? The problem has to do with leadership from the top. The foundation of how we decide leadership in Nigeria have destroyed the fabric of every strata of our society. If we must be looking at dealing with this, the security agencies can nip this one in the bud. Does not mean that it will happen again. It has happened in the past. It will still happen. It's also happening in other parts of the country because leadership have failed to follow its manual as leadership should be in any other part of the world. But here, nepotism, corruption, maladministration, all these ingredients is what have destroyed the very fabric of leadership in our country that is affecting the security agencies. How do we appoint those who lead these organizations? Once we are nepotic about it, then sentiments, favoritism become the order of the day. These things from one layer to the other layer will lead to the point where things break down. That's where our country is now. We need to go back and review our modus operandi in engagement. How do we select leaders? I told you that there's political dimension to it. You saw where two governorship candidates and the winner in Bayelsa are throwing stones over this issue, letting you know that there is a foundation that also has his contribution to what happened in Okwama. So you see, politics and how we select leadership, the fabric of our country, the things we accept and sometimes think that we have swept under the carpet is what is coming back to haunt our country. It is time to review the leadership structure of this country so that we can begin to get things right from the foundation.
Udeng Saradre, thank you so much for your insightful comments. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're now going on a short break. We'll be back with more stories to stay with us. The debt crisis in Africa is rising at a worrisome and exponential pace, with the constant rise in the value of foreign currency against local currencies and an increasing level of interest rates. With numerous interconnected economic crises, economists on the continent are now calling for a major structural adjustment at a recent conference by the International Development Economics Associates in Accra, Ghana. The conference, which will run for 4 days, seeks to address African debt crisis and reform of the international financial architecture. And joining me on the news to discuss this is News Central's correspondent, Adeshewa Odushoga. Adeshewa, thank you so much for availing yourself at this time. So kindly tell us, what is the focus of this conference and what problems are they looking to solve? That is the discussants and the participants there.
All right, Lekan, thank you so much for having me on the news. Now, the focus of this conference is to address the current debt crisis happening on the African continent. As a matter of fact, 24 out of 55 African countries are currently faced with an imminent debt crisis, which is affecting the economic development and growth of these nations. And then from what we have gathered, the panelists at the summit are addressing the root causes of this debt crisis. From what we know is that most of these African countries will seek debt from the U.S. Federal Reserve, saying that it is becoming almost impossible to service this debt as a result of the rising interest rate. We recall that the U.S. Federal Reserve increased its interest rate by, 2 years ago at a point where it is becoming almost impossible for these African countries to pay back their loans. And then also the current devaluation of the local currencies in these African countries makes it impossible, for these African countries to, pay back these loans, which often comes in foreign currencies. And also part of the deliberations here are that the role that the International Monetary Fund, that's the global financial body IMF, is playing in debt servicing, and we know that this debt crisis is affecting the access to finance for African countries. It's also affecting financing its climate actions, and also the ability to be able to reach the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. And also, we also understand that there is a call to prevent a repeat of the 1980 scenario, where we understand that the U.S. Federal Reserve raised its key interest rates, just like we have it now, and its commodity prices, and this reflected on the export earnings in African countries, which declined exponentially. And then also that experienced the financial markets, the position of the exchange rate. And then they say that if this continues to happen, if more African countries continues to be unable to finance its debt as a result of the structures that's laid down by the global financial bodies, and then also the Western economies like the US, the France, Germany, and the likes, Africa might forever be indebted to these Western countries, and then it might also affect, like I said earlier, its access to finance, financing its climate actions, reaching sustainable goals for 2030, and as well as, aiding the economic growth and development amidst the external shocks that is currently happening, which can be linked to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war that is having its impact on these African countries. We also know that most of these countries, there was a crash in the global oil prices, and this affected the foreign reserves of these countries, making it impossible to pay back their loans, which interest rate has doubled over the years. And then the deliberations at the summit by stakeholders is that Africa should begin to look inward into its natural resources to be the primary source for its foreign reserves in order to be able to finance it, to service its debt. Lekan.
Okay, Adeshawa Ogishoga, thank you so much for the in-depth updates you just gave to us. We'll continue to keep tabs with you. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And now to health matters. As part of events to commemorate World Tuberculosis Day 2024, stakeholders have noted that tuberculosis remains a major crisis. The Kwara State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Amina El Imam, reporting 1,869 deaths in 2023, reported about 1,869 deaths in 2023. Likewise, Enugu's Health Commissioner, Professor Ikechukwu Obi, said 2,496 confirmed cases were recorded in 2022. In the same vein, Borno's Health Commissioner, Professor Baba Malam Ghana, identified 5,000 cases and over 10,000 suspected in 2023. Ogun's Health Commissioner, Dr. Tomi Koka, expressed concern over the rising cases. Authorities nationwide are intensifying screening, treatment, and awareness to combat the persistent bacterial disease affecting lungs and other parts of the body. While some infections are dormant, around 10% become active and potentially fatal without treatment. The health commissioners stressed tackling all active cases to break transmission chains. And now joining us to discuss this is a public health expert, Dr. Oyebade Oyedumade. Dr. Oyedumade, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Oyedumade, are you there? I guess we'll revisit that during the course of the bulletin. Okay, Dr. Oyedumade, it's nice to have you around.
Good afternoon.
All right, so tell us now, what preventive measures or probably vaccinations are needed to mitigate the crisis and surging cases of what we just talked about?
Okay, good afternoon once again. It's a pleasure to be called on to talk about tuberculosis, which has been one of the deadly diseases that has caused a lot of mortality among Nigerians, especially among children less than 15, and at least there's a higher mortality among the children less than 5. However, I want to just create some background to just kind of just talk about tuberculosis a bit, which I will talk about that. Tuberculosis majorly is caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which we know that it can be found in different parts of the body. But however, the preventive measures include the first thing, which I think that is very, very important. That's advocacy. Like, everybody should know what tuberculosis is, and that should be shared through a lot of social medias, which everybody will know the symptoms to look forward to when you have these tuberculosis. However, I will also add that having vaccination, which is BCG, especially for our children, is very, very important. Then also boosting your immune system, either using of supplementary drugs, and also probably just having an edible diet is quite important for you to ensure that your immune system is ready to be able to combat the bacteria. Lastly, I will also say that imbibing a cough etiquette is quite important, because you know that a whole lot of people don't even know that they have these tuberculosis, because we have the ones that are dominant and the other ones that are active. So you can have somebody that is dominant for a lot of years and the immune system goes down, and suddenly you will just notice that this person is exposed to TB and the person comes out with TB. And a whole lot of people, like some people don't even have the luxury to just go to the healthcare facility to seek treatment. So that's why we need to just kind of just call for help, like for everybody, all the authorities and everybody should be concerned that tuberculosis is a deadly disease, and in every hour we have about 37 people that die. We have about almost 347 that are dead in a daily basis, and in a year you have about 10,000 people that are even dying. So it's good for us to just put measures in place to ensure that everybody is being screened, and there's a measure that is put in place to ensure that everybody goes through these diagnostic measures and to be aware that tuberculosis is real and it's curable.
So,
Thank you.
all right, are there people who suffer these particular ailments that are stigmatized? And when we have cases like that, how does it affect the patients? And what is being done by, of course, the workers, the medical professionals, in helping to deal with the issue of stigmatization?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think that question is very useful to this topic, because I kind of work with the HIV program, and there are a lot of stigmatization around it, and we know that people with HIV have tendency to have tuberculosis because they are just like intertwined to each other. So there's stigmatization as the truth. And the only way to break that stigmatization is by us, like, you have to just continue to just kind of just talk about it. Like for the what TB Day, I think for my the place that I kind of just work with, what we came up with was to just have a lot of jingles and a lot of banners that we post everywhere, just to just tell people that tuberculosis can be cured, because a lot of people have the misconception that once you have tuberculosis, you have to be running from the person and all those stigmatization, which is affecting treatment of these people, of this set of people. But looking at it, is more common with HIV people, with diabetes, with people with poor immune system, and the stigmatization is real. But we just need to just continue to just advocate and just try to just talk about it until everybody now have the literacy of what tuberculosis is and to seek help than just doing the stigmatization. Thank you.
Okay, so during the course of the news, I talked about some states that recorded rates at which this strain is spreading. Talking about Kwara State at 1,869, Enugu 2,496. We talked about Borno, 5,000 cases recorded and over 10,000 suspected in 2023 alone. What can be done to, you have said it is curable, so what can be done to reduce the spread, even as we look at cure? How do we reduce the strain from spreading and people contracting it?
Okay, yeah. One of the preventive measures that I would say is that it's quite important that everybody is kind of just know their status. That's the first thing. And looking at the report that is going around of people that are dead or people that are having this tuberculosis, we'll notice that it is people that cannot even make it to the healthcare sector. So it's for us to even go to where they are, where patients.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ibado Didumade, for the little time we're able to spend with you. We look at all the stories now. The Federal Road Safety Corps says it has set up more than 200 mobile courts to prosecute traffic offenders during the Easter Special Patrol operations across Nigeria. This was contained in a statement on Wednesday by the Corps Public Education Officer, Jonas Agu. Agu said the mobile courts were set up towards ensuring a safe and smooth 2024 Easter celebration. He quoted the Corps Marshal, Dauda Bill, as urging the commanding officers to ensure full deployment of staff for maximum visibility. Bill urged them to ensure prompt removal of obstructions on all highways across the country. Moving on now, Nigerians have continued to react to the President Bola Tinubu's call to the citizens to buy goods made in the country. While the presidency seeks to strengthen the local currency and boost the Nigerian economy with this directive, News Central's Perpetua Fasumi Peter spoke to Nigerians to know what their preferences are and the factors responsible for their choices.
In a bid to sustain the gains recorded in the foreign exchange market, the presidency has urged Nigerians to buy made-in-Nigeria products. I'm here on the streets to find out what Nigerians think about this.
majority of the product they produce in Nigeria, most of them are fake, but I can still I prefer imported goods than the Nigerian ones.
I prefer imported goods because what they do is is very neat than Nigerian production.
Nigerian here, like we used to compromise. We compromise with our products. Let the standard organization take care of the issue on ground.
Quality, price, and distrust are some of the factors highlighted here. But what do players in the manufacturing industry have to say about this?
By the time we continue to import, we will continue to have inflation because there will be more stress on the naira. Yes, there will be challenges here and there, but to me, those are pockets of challenges. If you look at some of the products coming out from Nigeria, you'll be marveled. You wonder if this is actually from Nigeria.
What more can the government do? Not just to encourage Nigerians to buy made-in-Nigeria goods, but to also address the nation's major foreign exchange challenge, foreign currency illiquidity.
One way government can do that is to increase the ease of doing business. Government must be intentional about making funds accessible and affordable to business owners. As manufacturers or producers in Nigeria, we must also learn to begin to do backward integration. So government must be able to address the issue of power, make power accessible to almost everybody, and make it affordable also.
The gains recorded in the foreign exchange market in the past few days is nothing short of commendable. However, to sustain this, the fiscal authority must also rise to the occasion and do what it must to encourage local production and reduce pressure on the nation's currency, Naira. In Lagos, for News Central, Perpetual Fasami Peter.
Coming up on the news. Son of Guinea-Bissau ex-president jailed in U.S. for drug trafficking. Find out more after this break. The news continues in West Africa, where the son of former Guinea-Bissau's president, Malam Sanha, has been sentenced to over 6 years in prison by a U.S. court for leading an international heroin traffic ring. Authorities say 52-year-old Malam Sanha Jr. planned to use the proceeds to fund his ambitions to become Guinea-Bissau's president through a coup and was linked to the February 2022 foiled coup attempt in the country. In September last year, he pleaded guilty to conspiring to illegally importing drugs. He was extradited to the U.S. in August 2022, following his arrest in Tanzania a few weeks earlier. U.S. authorities say Sanha Jr. could be deported following his imprisonment, as he is not an American citizen. Let's now tell you that China has congratulated Bassirou Diomaye Faye on his victory in Senegal's presidential election, describing the two nations as good friends and brothers. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said China is pleased that the election was held peacefully and orderly. He said Beijing is willing to work with the new government of Senegal to deepen political mutual trust, expand private practical cooperation, and promote the continuous development of bilateral relations.
见到塞内加尔大选和平有序举行，对巴西鲁迪奥马耶法耶获胜表示祝贺。中塞是好朋友、好兄弟，中方高度重视中塞关系发展，愿同塞方新一届政府共同努力，深化政治互信，拓展务实合作，推动两国关系不断向前发展。
In East Africa, Kenya's Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki says the site where hundreds of bodies were discovered buried in shallow mass graves in April 2023 will now be a site of remembrance, as well as the final resting place for some of the victims of what has been dubbed the Shakahola Forest Massacre. The minister called it one of the worst tragedies on Kenyan soil. Self-proclaimed pastor Paul Ntenge McKinsey is alleged to have incited his followers to starve to death to meet Jesus.
One of the worst tragedies to ever occur on the soil of our country occurred in this county. Just north of Malindi, at a place called Shakahola, we lost so many people, brothers and sisters who met their death in the hands of a criminal organization purporting to be an organization of faith. As you're aware, the experts who have been helping us to identify our departed brothers and sisters have made some progress in terms of profiling the 429 bodies that have been lying at the hospital in Malindi. And we've started releasing bodies
Still ahead of the news. Audio of the first responder of Baltimore Bridge collapse call emerges. You can find out more when we return from this break. Audio has emerged of a first responder call as officials halted traffic on both sides of the Francis Scott Key Bridge moments before it collapsed. The cargo ship had issued a mayday call to alert authorities it had lost power before it collided with the Baltimore Bridge on Tuesday morning. Following the call, Maryland Transportation Authority police dispatch and response officials acted swiftly, shutting down the north and south sides of the bridge. In the audio, one official instructs, and I quote, "Hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There is a ship approaching that just lost their steering, so until we get that under control, we've got to stop all traffic," end of quote. And now joining us to give us more details about the stories, our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, can you tell us more about the first responder call and the victim to be named in this incident?
Well, yes, 6 people were missing in this terrible incident. All of them now are presumed dead. So we have the details of the first person to be named. And he was one of the construction workers that was on the bridge from El Salvador. His name is Miguel Luna. And there's also been a second victim confirmed as well. He is also thought to be another immigrant worker. He is by the name of Maynor Sandoval, and he's a Honduran citizen. And it's actually thought that most of these, or all of these 6 workers who were filling in potholes on the bridge, there was thought to be no structural damage on the bridge, but they were doing road maintenance work. They're all from Guatemala or Mexico or El Salvador, all immigrant workers, all from middle to low class families. They were all sending money back home. And the devastation is real in their families and, of course, in their communities as well.
So we also heard that the cargo ship actually issued a mayday call saying that it lost power. Can you tell us a bit more what actually went wrong with the ship?
And that's the question on everybody's lips. How could this possibly happen? I mean, you see, we've all seen by now the footage of the ship just kind of careering into the major point of the bridge, bringing down this 1.6-mile long bridge. Now, the black box recorder from the ship has been found. Like plane, ships of this size do have a black box recorder that basically tracks everything that happens on the ship. An unclassified memo by US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure said that the ship lost propulsion as it was leaving Baltimore Harbor. We saw the lights flickering across the ship once and then twice before impact. That indicates that it potentially lost power. The ship has been moving at a very rapid speed towards the bridge. The people that were driving the ship, the crew, were very experienced, and none of them were actually hurt in the incident as well. This mayday call that was made as well, that details have been released about today, some few minutes before the collision actually happened, probably saved hundreds of lives if they managed to close the bridge at either side. But unfortunately for those men that were working on the bridge at the time, 2 of whom were recovered from the water, 2 of whom we now know are dead, 4 still missing, it was unfortunately too late for them.
So I want to believe that this particular route is a cargo line for ships to navigate. How do you think it will affect shipping within that area?
Well, Baltimore is one of, if not the busiest port in the United States for, wheeled cargo. So cars, trucks, everything like that. A lot of that passes through Baltimore. Around 800,000 vehicles passed through the port in 2023 and 1.3 million tons of imported cargo. So this is going to have a devastating effect, actually, on the local community. Some 21,000 units of cargo go through other ports in the region, but with 800,000 vehicles passing through and 1.3 million tons of cargo going through this particular port, it shows you how important it is. Now, the biggest economic impact will be felt actually in that immediate Baltimore region. The port supports about 15,000 jobs and 140,000 jobs in the surrounding area around the port as well. So this is going to have a huge effect on getting vehicles and things into the area, things that are shipped into the area and given out to local businesses. It's going to have a huge effect on the port itself, the people that are employed, 15,000, and then other businesses that are supported by the amount of cargo that goes through that port. And let's also remember as well, and we are in a time where we're having issues in the Panama Canal, and the Red Sea, which have been buffeted by attacks due to the instability in that region and low water levels in the Panama Canal. And that's also affecting shipping around the world. So it's going to have an added strain on the global sea trade if you've got this particular port, one of the busiest in the United States, out of action also.
All right. Afi Hagen, thank you so much for the updates. Talking sports now, South Africa's under-20 rugby team, Junior Springboks, will open the under-20 rugby championship campaign against New Zealand on Thursday, May 2, at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. This groundbreaking event will showcase Argentina, Australia, New Zealand and South Africa's rising talents in a historic showdown among the 4 Southern Hemisphere nations set in the Sunshine Coast region of Queensland, Australia. This tournament in May will feature a round-robin format where every team will face off once. The team that emerges victorious after the 3-round, 6-match competition will claim the title of the first ever Rugby Championship Under-20 Championship. Moving on now, Victoria Azarenka pushed forward in a quest for 7-6-4. Rybakina, who reached last year's final but was defeated by Petra Kvitova of the Czech Republic, continues her strong performance in this year's competition. We also tell you that the Vietnam Football Federation has announced today that Philippe Trezay, the globetrotting coach who led Nigeria to qualify for the France '98 World Cup, has been sacked following his team's 3-0 loss to Indonesia in the 3rd round of Asia's preliminaries for the 2026 World Cup. The Frenchman, also known as the White Witch Doctor for his belief in witchcraft, took over from Park Hang-seo last year. Trezay, who previously walked off before signing a contract with Nigeria in 2005, suspected to have done so as payback for a prior sacking. Since then, he has traveled to South Africa, Burkina Faso, Japan, Qatar, and most recently Vietnam, where he was relieved of his duties after the defeat in Hanoi. This loss marked the 2nd consecutive defeat to Indonesia in 6 days, leaving Vietnam in 3rd place in qualifying Group F. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we'll take a look at some of our major stories. Nigeria's president has said kidnappers must be treated as terrorists. China has congratulated Senegal's Faye on election win. We also told you that the son of Guinea-Bissau's ex-president has been jailed in the U.S. for drug trafficking. Don't forget to send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. And you can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Arvo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.